So, traditionally, there's always been two types of drone flying when it comes to consumer drones. There's this. Well, then there's this. This is your FPV flying, mad, doing acrobats, spins, whoop-de-whoops and all that kind of thing. And for some, that's a lot of fun. And believe me, it is fun. But in recent years, it's almost like the sort of camera drone stuff got together with the FPV stuff and made a love child. And that is cinematic FPV. And that's where my interests lie, because you can capture some amazing stuff with the sort of bird's eye view using an FPV drone that you just can't capture with something like your Mavic Air 2 or your Mavic or even your Phantoms. So it wasn't going to be long before DJI, the king of consumer drones, entered the market with an FPV drone of their own. And it's here. I've got it. I've been flying the heck out of it. And we're going to cover everything that I like and dislike about it in this video. Cue the music. What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Keith and welcome to the beautiful island of Chang in Thailand. I hope you enjoyed that little bit at the beginning. All of it's been shot on auto unfortunately because I don't have the ND filters, so I wouldn't say it's true cinematic, but it's got potential. Anyway, let's get into the specs of this drone. 4K 60 and 120 in 1080p, which is kind of now standard on DJI drones, finally, which is pretty cool. It goes from 0 to 60 in a face reconfigure in 2 seconds. And that's quite true. I took off from here yesterday and I just put on full speed and it went out like that. It went 22, 48, 60 on the speedometer. Nothing else, it was that quick. Battery life is supposedly, if you believe DJI, 20 minutes. Now, if you fly that drone like a Mavic in normal mode, slowly on half throttle, yeah, you'll probably get 20 minutes out of it, making sure there's no wind. But if you fly it on a beach like this in sports mode, you'll be lucky if you get 7 or 8 minutes. I've been getting on average about 7 minutes before it wants to return to home. And that's another thing. This thing, unlike any other FPV drone on the market, this has all of DJI's safety features like return to home. It has crash avoidance sensors in normal mode and all the other gubbins that comes with a DJI drone. So let's get into the pros and cons that I've found with this drone, and then I'll give you my final thoughts at the end. So we'll cover the pros first. First thing is, it is a lot of fun. There is no denying that. In fact, I don't think I've been this excited about a drone since I bought my very first drone, which was a Parrot AR 2.0 drone, which you flew with an app on the phone via Wi-Fi. It wouldn't go very far, and the camera was very much FPV style because it didn't have a gimbal at all. I then obviously graduated to Sparks and Mavics and things like that, and they're great because you can, you know, creatively I get a kick out of flying them. But this thing is a different beast altogether. This is just fun, and it's a huge rush, especially when you're sort of flying through trees and stuff in first person view with those goggles on your head. There's just nothing else quite like it, unless of course you get into real FPV, which this is DJI FPV. So one thing that is really useful on this drone, especially if you get into manual mode, is what DJI have done is a clever little trick. In the goggles, when you take off the drone, and if you turn to look at you, you'll see an H, and that's your home point. And they're using AR technology to overlay the home point on the screen of your goggles. So if you are in manual mode and doing whoop-de-whoops and spinnies and all that kind of stuff that you do in manual mode, and you get a bit disorientated, you'll be able to spin the drone around and see where your home point is. That's a really nice touch and a really cool feature. Another thing that's really cool is, although these batteries only last about 7 minutes, they charge really quickly. So I've got the Fly More kit for this drone, and I can charge all 3 batteries, and they all charge up in the time that it takes to charge one Mavic Air 2 battery. That's pretty neat. So I get a lot more flight time out of this drone, and because my car, I've got a Ford Ranger, and that's got a full power port in the back, I can plug in and charge as I go, and they're charged by the time I get to the next spot. Really like that. One more thing to mention, what I quite like is the controller. I like the controller of this drone. It feels familiar in my hand, and I think DJI have done this on purpose. They've styled it after a video game pad. More specifically, it feels like the Xbox controller, and I'm familiar with that. I used to play a lot of video games when I was young. I used to do a lot of Battlefront 2, Star Wars, where the one thing that I was pretty good at was flying an X-Wing or a TIE fighter. That was the only thing I really did well on online. And that has translated to flying this drone. And I think that I got into sports mode and being able to fly through tight gaps a lot quicker because of that experience in video games. So for me, that's a pro. I like the controller. And then there's the transmission in the goggles as well. With OcuSync 3, we get 1080p transmission to the goggles. And one thing that's always put me off FPV is the analog transmission. You see all the interference, and I would find that really, really annoying. There is not much of that when it comes to the DJI digital system, and with the V2 goggles, which is a slight improvement over the V1 goggles, which was for your FPV drones, they're just pin sharp and really, really good. And of course, one last thing on the sort of pro list is this drone has, let's just say, been Marmite in the drone community, and there are people that are vehemently dislike this drone. But there is one thing I think we can all agree on. It's the startup of this drone. It is so cool. I mean, check this out. How cool is that? I mean, you even if you don't like the drone, even if you don't like how the drone flies, you can't deny that that is just cool. And I love how you can change the LEDs. I mean, for the purpose of showing off here, I've got them in the rainbow, but you can change them to all the colors that you want. I, of course, get mine to light up blue because I have this thing about anything that lights up blue is cool, even electric toothbrushes. But I like how you can basically have a light show on this thing, and it just makes it cooler. Okay, let's get into the cons, and there are a few of them. As much as I love this drone, I really do love this drone, there are a few things that I found. I think some of them, or if not most of them, probably can be fixed with software and firmware updates, and that really gets me onto the first one. DJI typically release products, in my opinion, that are not always ready. We've seen this with the Mavic 2, we saw this with the Osmo Pocket especially, and we've seen it with other DJI products where I feel that they release things that just don't feel well tested. They seem to rush these things to the market before they really release features that are there. Like, typically when they announced the Osmo Pocket and the Mavic 2, they said that there were these features like waypoints, and then you had deciner-like on the Osmo Pocket. But when you got it in your hand day one, none of that was there. And you'd wait on the website for a few days, and then they would write in really small writing, available in the future firmware. And that really, really annoyed me. Because this drone is so much fun, I slightly forgive them of that. But there are features missing. There are things that feel a bit unpolished, not like your DJI. In sports and normal mode, it doesn't fly as smoothly as I think it should, and I think it can. For instance, in wind, especially flying out here on the beach, I notice in sports mode, when I do a tight turn, it dips down at least 1 or 2 meters. Now, if you're flying low level, it's gonna go in the drink. So you've got to be aware of that, especially in wind, it seems. So I know that they can fix that, and I know they can do that in firmware, but why wasn't that there day one? So as it stands at the moment, the only way to change the settings on the drone is through the goggles. You can connect the DJI Fly app through your phone, but all that does is manage your updates, and it gives you an output of what you're seeing in the goggles. But to change any menu settings, it's through the goggles, and it's through this sort of what I find quite fiddly knob on top. And then there's a back button, and I don't like it. It would be very nice if we can manage the settings through here. Talking of the settings, there are a few things that I find that are missing. Battery info being one of the strangest. Why that isn't included at the moment, I don't know. I can't see how many cycles each battery's had. I can't see what it's outputting in power, and that's really annoying. I know that it's going to come in the future firmware, but why not include it from day one? One thing that DJI have included, but not included for every mode, is being able to tune the settings on your controller. So in manual mode, this is very important, and it's kind of a subjective thing. FPV guys, the real FPV guys, like to tune the hell out of their controls so that they're set to them. So, you know, they're set to the way they like to fly, and everyone is different. I like to tune my settings, like the expo settings and stuff on my Mavic drones, because I tend to be a bit aggressive sometimes on controllers. So I like to dampen things depending on which mode I'm in, or the opposite, I want things a bit more agile. So I mentioned earlier, it has OcuSync 3 for transmission, and I've noticed that everybody who's making videos bangs on about how great it is. Now, in fairness to those guys, they're all in the US, and obviously there's 2 modes of transmission. There's FCC mode, which is your strongest full transmission, and that's the one that DJI always brags out. So when they say 8 miles of range, you're only ever going to get that in FCC country. If you're in Europe or in Thailand or anywhere like that, you're not going to get that range because they dampen it down. It seems to be completely dampened down here, so much so that, as you can see, I've got line of sight right out there. I was less than 1,000 meters off in a straight line, nothing in my way, and I started losing signal, so much so that I then dropped signal and it went into return to home mode. That's not good, and I've been seeing that a lot. If I go behind even the smallest of trees, which aren't particularly thick, I lose signal. I don't know if it's an issue with my drone. I've reached out to the dealer to ask him if anybody else is experiencing this. And hey guys, if you're experiencing this, leave a comment in the comments below. But for me at the moment, although when OcuSync 3 works, it's really, really good, and the transmission's clear, there doesn't seem to be the range on it a lot of the guys in the US are getting. Personally, I think the videography I'm getting out of it is okay. I can't really make a final judgment until I get my ND filters in. The one thing I've noticed early on was I was flying a track just by my house, and I was learning to really, you know, fly in sports mode. But I noticed even on sunny days in the shadows, I was seeing a lot of noise. And I know if you're flying with the standard color profile, it seems to crush the shadows a hell of a lot. But if you're flying in deciner-like, it should desaturate the whole thing, which it does, but there is noise in the shadows. It's almost like the camera in auto mode is prioritizing ISO rather than shutter speed. And because of the small sensor in this thing, really anything beyond ISO 800, it's going to be really, really bad when it comes to noise. Even at ISO 800, it's probably going to be quite noisy, but it seems to be doing that. Now, I reckon that obviously a firmware upgrade will prioritize shutter over ISO, and it should be better. But really, to get the best out of this drone, you're going to need ND filters and manually set your exposures. So another con at the moment, and something that can be fixed, is typically I shoot in deciner-like because I like to color my own stuff. And when you're doing that on a camera, if you have a monitor, you can have something in the monitor so you can overlay a LUT, so you can see what roughly your shot's going to look like when it's colored. DJI need to do that in the goggles, because at the moment when you're flying in decinelite, because of its desaturated nature, you miss small features. Even though the goggles are really sharp, because of the colouring, you can't see something. Now, I want to be able to shoot in decinelite, but I really could do with overlaying some kind of standard LUT on the goggles, so I'm not seeing when I'm flying it the decinelite look, because I was missing low-hanging vines yesterday when I was flying, and I hit a couple. No damage to the drone, luckily, because they were very small, but it's because of that colour profile that I was missing them. With the standard colour profile and more contrast, I'll be able to see them. Now, it's very easy to do. You just include a LUT on the goggles and an option to overlay that. They do that on camera monitors all the time, so that would be a feature I really, really would like to see. Okay, one of the biggest gripes of when DJI released their V1 goggles was the foam around the edge. It lets a lot of light leak in. It's not that comfortable, and DJI very quickly released a foam upgrade kit for this, which would improve the comfortability, and it stopped all the light leaks, especially around the nose area. Most people that bought the V1 goggles immediately did this foam upgrade. So it strikes as a bit of a surprise that DJI just didn't include the foam upgrade kit on the V2 version of the goggles. I've had to order the extra foam because this foam is crap, and that's just annoying. I mean, I'm scratching my head as to why DJI didn't just include that. I've left the elephant in the room to last, because this is the single biggest gripe that everybody has with this drone, and I can't disagree with them, and that is durability. This drone is not built to take hard knocks, no matter what DJI claim. We're seeing that because loads of people have already wrecked this drone, and it's the same thing, the arms are snapping off. Now, there is a parts company that we found that sells parts in the US, and surprisingly, they are not expensive for DJI. I'll leave that in the descriptions below. So you can replace the arm for like 20 bucks, but that's one arm. And if you smash up 3 of them, that's 60 bucks. But it's still cheaper, but it is not built to take hard knocks. And as an FPV drone, it should. Now, this FPV drone, in my opinion, is targeted at the likes of people like me who are used to flying Mavic drones and want something a little bit more fun. So we're not used to flying in manual mode. We're not even used to flying a drone that goes 60 miles an hour in sports mode. People are going to have accidents. I have come close. And the thing is with this drone is, unlike a Mavic where you fly it quite sensibly, this drone kind of eggs you on. It's kind of like the witch from Hansel and Gretel, constantly dangling sweets in you. Come on, little kiddies, fly me harder. And it does do that. I mean, I was out of normal mode in minutes because I was getting bored of it. It's definitely not the most durable drone, and I do wonder why they didn't make it stronger, why they didn't make it from carbon fiber. I have a feeling that the carbon fiber manufacturing would have put the value of the drone up even more, and people are already moaning about the price on it. So yeah, it is not a durable drone. You do have to be careful with it. You can't really fly it in freestyle. It's capable of doing it, but I'm not going to try and fly it in freestyle. For you FPV guys out there who are shaking your head at me now, well, the one thing it has done it's reignited my interest in flying real freestyle FPV. I think I'm going to buy myself the Beta FPV 95 whip drone or the starter kit. Not sure yet. I'm doing some more research, but I do want to try and learn manual, and I'm not doing so well on the sims, but I think I might do better in reality. The good thing is that my goggles will work with the drone if I order the one with the caster or the DJI kit in it. The remote won't, so I'm probably going to end up having to buy a remote as well as the drone, but I am very much tempted to get into real FPV purely for the joy of flying. With this drone, I am going to keep it. I love it. I know creatively, once I've got my ND filters, I'm going to be able to get some really, really good stuff with it. DJI does need to fix the firmware. They do need to smooth out those flight modes, the sports and normal mode. The rumor is they're working on a cinematic mode for it, whatever that is. That could be interesting. And I know that there's going to be lots of firmware kit that's coming out for it and stuff like that. But look, even with all those issues that I've listed on it, I love it. It's just so much fun. It does put a smile on my face. I'm really, really enjoying it. I know it's not for everyone, but for me, I don't regret it one instant. So I have had a lot of fun with it. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave this video there. I'm going to be making a few more videos around this drone. I'm going to try and shoot a few more on the island while I'm still here. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like, because it lets YouTube know that it's a good video and more people should watch it. If you like this kind of thing, I make photography videos, drone videos, the odd vlog here and there, because I travel to places like this in Thailand and I just love filming it. So I make the odd vlog here and there. If that's the kind of thing you're interested in, please consider hitting the subscribe button. But for now, I will see you in the next video. Happy flying, stay safe, bye-bye.